So it's about 12 years ago. This is a time in history some of you will remember we didn't have smartphones or cloud services. And we were about to have our second child born. And my wife wanted me to film the birth, the delivery of our son, so that like after, the chaos and the emotion, the fatigue of that whole experience, she could watch it from a different perspective and enjoy the miracle of our child being born. Now, I had to use an archaic form of technology. It was called a video camera. Some of you might remember these. And we had like little digital tapes. They were cooler than like the bigger tapes before that. It was like a big deal back then. Most of you don't really know. But the point is this. My wife and I, we never got to see that video. Like I made it, but we never saw it because we lost it. And we have no idea where it went. And more disturbing than that, we have no idea who may or may not have ever seen that video, which would be far less beautiful to those people who saw it. It'd be a very confusing trip to the Salvation Army for that person. Like, I thought I bought a video camera. I didn't know it was going to ruin my life. But anyway, you know that feeling when you lose something valuable? You know that feeling when you lose something priceless, something you can't replace, that sense? Doesn't it sometimes feel like life in a lot of ways is just this big search for something? This big search for someone or something somewhere, and we're not really sure if we'll ever find it? I'm glad you guys are with us today as we continue in this series called Christmas List. My name is Kevin, I'm one of the pastors around here. And we kicked this series off last week talking about the guest list, the list that began the whole Christmas story. And as we continue to talk about the different various forms of lists in the Christmas season, we're going to talk today about our wish lists. Our wish lists, what could be more appropriate around Christmas time than to talk about our wish lists? Like, it doesn't matter how old you are, you still have some stuff on the wish list, especially for Christmas, let alone your life. Like, I don't know what that is for you now. And it's funnier, the older we get, the more like Christmas is just an excuse to spend money on buying something that we could have bought any other time of the year, but now is the time. And it's even funnier between like family members. My cousin and I, we exchanged texts this year. We said, hey, instead of you sending me money and me sending you money, let's just keep our money and we'll just give each other a hug at the family Christmas party. So that's what we're doing. And I still owe him that hug. But as we get older, we still have wish lists, though. We still have stuff that we want. And what's on yours? Like, do you have a wish list running? Do you have one on Amazon? You share it with people? Or think back rather to when you were a kid. What was on the wish list of your life as a kid? The toy, the bike, the BB gun, the whatever you thought, if I just get that, your life will be complete. What was that? And when I think of this, when I think especially about like when I was a kid versus now looking at my kids, I realize how coddled our kids are these days. Right? They have Elf on the Shelf. They have movies like Toy Story. You guys remember when we were kids, what happened if our toys came to life? Yeah, they murdered everybody that you love, right? You remember that? Yeah. We don't do that anymore. But when you were a kid and you had that wish list, that thing, that toy that you just couldn't, what's the first one that you think of? Was it those Reebok like pumps? Was it a BB gun? What was it? In fact, do me a favor. Turn to somebody near you, around, behind you. Tell them the thing that was on your wish list. What was that toy when you were a kid? Go. Tell them. What was it? What was the thing that you just thought, all Christmas lists will be complete if I just get this one thing? What was it? Now, what's interesting about those gifts in our life, what's interesting about those toys is where are they now? Right? Where's the stuff that we couldn't live without, but now today, what? At some point it didn't live up to its expectations. It fell apart. It broke. It didn't, it turns out, satisfy what we really wanted. Right? Because usually whenever we got that one gift that we just thought we couldn't live without, as soon as we got it, we moved on to the next thing on the wish list that we wanted. The new thing that now we can't live without. And that, it turns out, it's not just something that we struggle with as kids. It's something we still kind of struggle about as adults. I thought of it this way. It's interesting as my kids get older. I watch my oldest son around Christmas time kind of scoff at the things his younger brother wants because he thinks they're silly and childish. But the truth is, I kind of scoff at some of the things my kids want because they think they need it, and I just think they're silly. But I wonder how many times God is looking at me, shaking his head, going, Kevin, you don't need that either. Now, Kevin, that thing can't actually satisfy your soul. Because I think a lot of times when we talk about the wish lists of our life, we're not talking about stuff that we want. We're talking about stuff that we think that we need. Because if I just could get that, if I could just have that, get that promotion, have that relationship, experience that thing, then. When we talk about the wish list of our life, what we're really talking about is our search for meaning in life. Trying to find something that will cease the wanting, crave the desire to accomplish or have or experience. The question this Christmas is, how do you find real fulfillment and meaning in your life? How do you find the thing that you're really after in life? And so what I want to do today is turn to an interesting book that comes from the first half of the Bible. It's like the Bible Jesus used growing up. It's the Jewish scriptures, a book called Ecclesiastes. It's a book that's written down in a genre called wisdom literature. It was written down to be wisdom for us to look back upon, to learn from. And it's written by a man named Solomon, who's known as like one of the wisest guys to ever live. But when you read the story of Ecclesiastes, at the end of his life, what he's writing to us is about how many dumb mistakes that he made pursuing the wrong stuff, trying to find meaning and value in his life in the wrong ways. And as you read the story, if you've never read it in Ecclesiastes, you watch Solomon talk about how he went down every paths you and I try to go down in our lives. And he's writing to us at the end of his life, having incredible success, writing back to us saying, those were all dead ends. Those things did not deliver on what I hoped they would in my life. And when we read his story, he is a guy who was incredibly successful in every way you and I could ever hope to want to be in our life. He had tons of money. He had incredible success. He accomplished a lot of great things. He built a lot of great things. But then even more than that, he was incredibly opulent. Like he denied himself no entertainment and no pleasure in life. He tried to get happiness and fulfillment in everything. And it's funny when you read his story that he's like the wisest guy ever, but he had 700 wives and 300 like extra women on the side. He's obviously not that smart of a dude. But he writes, it's like he just went down every path that he could, and what he's writing to us at the end of his life saying, hey, this isn't it. What we're all searching for in life, it's not found in this stuff down these paths. And so if you have a Bible, you can open up to Ecclesiastes chapter 1. If you don't have it, we'll put it up on the screens here for you. Read with me. Here's the start of this letter. It's very warm and Christmassy. You're going to love it. We'll start in verse 2. Here's what he says. Everything is meaningless, says the teacher, completely meaningless. What do people get for all their hard work under the sun? Generations come and generations go, but the earth never changes. The sun rises and the sun sets, then hurries around the earth to rise again. The wind blows south, then turns north. Around and round it goes, blowing in circles. Rivers run into the sea, but the sea is never full. Then the water returns again to the rivers and flows out again to the sea. Everything is wearisome beyond description. No matter how much we see, we are never satisfied. No matter how much we hear, we are not content. History merely repeats itself, and it has all been done before. Nothing under the sun is truly new. Merry Christmas. Thanks, Solomon, for that upbeat. You don't see a whole lot of Ecclesiastes chapter 1 refrigerator magnets. Like, this is not real inspirational stuff. And you look at it as like this inspired text of scripture written to us, and you start and you're like, ugh, it's a bit of a downer. You read it and you kind of hope, hey, I hope Solomon was just like having a real bad day. Maybe he's in a bad season of life and we just need to give him a little grace, but he's not. He's not some melancholy, pessimistic, tired guy. He's writing to us, like I said, at the end of his life after incredible successes, and he's saying, hey, I have tried it all and is all found empty. And if you are not careful, you will chase the same wind that I've been chasing. You will find yourself at the end of life in the eyes of everyone, by every measure, successful, but still feeling like you didn't find what you were really searching for in this life. Because meaning and purpose and fulfillment cannot be found in the success and in like the normal paths that the world sets for us. Let me give you 4 words that kind of help create a category for this so you can process this in your own mind. There are kind of 4 buckets that these are not bad or good. They're just things that can motivate us positively or negatively. And if we keep them in the right boundaries, they're good. And if we don't pay attention to how we're chasing these things, they can be bad. Here are the words. See which one you relate with the most. Power, possessions, pleasure, and prestige. Think of the one of those that is the best way for you to feel affirmed or successful for the work that you've done. Is it a promotion that gives you more authority, so more power? Power really motivates you? Or perhaps it's possessions. It's that new promotion comes with a pay raise that allows you to own more stuff. It's the house you have or the car you have. That kind of affirms the success and the work that you've done in life. Or maybe it's pleasure. It's that because of the job or the work or the money you have, it's the access you then have to build in-home theaters and eat whatever kind of food you want whenever you want, or whatever those pleasures are that you chase in life. Or maybe for you, it's the prestige, it's the influence that those roles or jobs give you. And the more influence you have, the more successful you feel. These are not wrong, be careful. But if we don't keep them in check, they can be absolutely detrimental to us, because without realizing it, we can be chasing power, possessions, pleasure and prestige in this life, looking for it to give us the meaning, the value, the worth in our life. And it can't. They motivate us. Just like our wish list. Unintentionally, we can be looking to those things to bring purposeful meaning to our lives if we achieve this or accomplish this or experience this, and they just simply can't. Those things can enrich your life, but they cannot give you the meaning of your life. And so what Solomon is doing here, even though it starts out a little gloomy, he's doing some kind of advanced exploration into the meaning of life. And he's giving us a report back from the top of every ladder you and I could hope to climb, or that our culture tells us brings success and real meaning to our lives. And it's interesting when you read the story of Solomon and all that he did. I mean, he's saying this from thousands of years ago, but even today, people who are successful, celebrities, wealthy, they say the same thing to us. I don't know if you've ever heard quotes like this. Let me just read you a couple of examples. Tom Brady, after winning his third Super Bowl, said this: "Why do I have 3 Super Bowl rings and still think there is something greater out there for me? I think, gosh, it's got to be more than this. I mean, this can't be all that it's cracked up to be. I think there are a lot of other parts of me that I'm trying to find." He's searching. Ted Turner, a guy who'll be known as one of the richest, most successful businessmen, he, in describing his own life, said this: "My life was like a B-grade movie. You don't want to leave it in the middle, but you don't want to watch it again." Eddie Murphy said it this way: "I don't think that there's anyone who feels like there isn't something missing in their life. No matter how much money you make or how many cars or houses you have or how many people you make happy." Brad Pitt said it this way: "Man, I know all the things that are supposed to seem important to us, the car, the house, our version of success. If you ask me, I say toss all this out. We've got to find something else. I'm the guy who's got everything. I'm sitting in it, and I'm telling you, it's not it." Now, if you're like me, there's part of us that goes, "Yeah, but I'd like to try." Right? Brad Pitt, you don't, Brad, I could do better than you, is what I think, right? But no, this is what Solomon has said. This is what people are telling us. And this is sad news for some of us. Because some of us, we are working long hours and we are working hard and we are haunted by the fear of failing at something or missing something. Right, this is tough to kind of palate, because there's some of us, you're entrepreneurs and your business is doing great, or you're investors and your portfolio is doing great, or some of you, you're finishing up an education that it's adding some great new little letters after your name, or you work long hours to try to get ahead, or you're building your dream home, or you live for the weekend and your friends and the parties. You are chasing something. And Solomon and people like Solomon that hit these top ladders, they're saying this isn't it. And if you're not careful, you're going to miss the mark too. Solomon's saying, I've been there. It didn't deliver. Keep searching. And what I love about this, that what Solomon tells us, and especially as you read the story, if you haven't read Ecclesiastes, you need to read it this week. It's only 12 chapters. But what he's talking about that's so powerful is that our craving for meaning in life, it doesn't go away when you get success. It doesn't go away when you get to the top. How scary is that? That you could spend years and sacrifice and sweat and blood and tears in your life to be successful at something, to find it empty. Because it's so easy to chase the wrong thing. And so Solomon writes to us at the top, right? We've all heard of stories of people at the bottom. They have these rock bottom experiences and these spiritual realizations, and they learn these lessons. But he's writing to us from the top, saying sooner or later, whether it's the bottom or the top of life, you got to learn this lesson and you got to keep it in check. He's writing and asking us to be smarter than him, wiser than him, right? Smart people learn from their mistakes. That's a smart thing to do. But wise people learn from the mistakes of others to avoid that pain in their own life. And so Solomon here is screaming at us from history saying, be wiser than me. Learn the lesson. Don't try to find your meaning and purpose in this life in power or possession or prestige or in pleasure. You just can't find it there. And Solomon and Brad Pitt and these people, they're not being negative. It's just a real honest reflection of the depth of the intensity you and I have to crave meaning in this life. For there to be some kind of purpose or reason for everything. Right? The problem is that we look to power, possessions, and pleasures and stuff. Now, those aren't the problem themselves. It's that we look to them to be something they can't. Those are like gifts given to us. But too often, it's very easy to confuse the gift with the giver, and therefore to confuse the real purpose of it all. Now, what's great about the book of Ecclesiastes is that meaningless is the intro, it's not the conclusion. Meaningless is the beginning. This is setting the tone for the problem that he's trying to solve for you and I, the answer he's trying to help us find in our life. And so like in the last chapter, one of the last verses, like a last second buzzer shot, Solomon gives us the answer. And here's what he says in chapter 12, verse 13. He says, now all has been heard. Here is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind. In this simple little understanding, he's saying you can do a lot of things in your life that are great, but all of it will boil down at the end to who you know to be your creator and knowing him and being known by him. Loving him and being loved by him. It's in the fear and the relationship of God and how he designed you and living that pattern out in your life that you will find the real meaning, the real thing that you're searching for. It's found nowhere else and in no one else. And so I want to give you two different words that start with P that we're meant to pursue and to really understand. So that the gifts of power and prestige and pleasure and possessions, that they can just be a gift in our life and nothing more. Here's the first one. If we're going to avoid the mistakes that Solomon made in his life, you and I need to understand our purpose. All right, the thing that separates what's a gift that's just good and a blessing in our life for something that becomes a distraction is understanding our purpose. Right? If you're going to really decide to understand your meaning, then you've got to understand your purpose. At least the purpose that the claim of Jesus gives us. In fact, one of the best ways I've ever seen this illustrated or heard is from Hall of Fame coach in the NFL, Tony Dungy. So Tony Dungy, first African-American coach to ever win a Super Bowl with the Colts. And he's a guy who reached incredible success, hit the top of the ladders of all the things that he was trying to pursue in his life. But unlike some of those other celebrities I read, when he achieved it, it wasn't this emptiness to him. In fact, here's what he says after winning his first Super Bowl. He says, it was everything I had hoped that it would be and more. I'm still living on the momentum of that experience. But he said that the reason this is because for him, winning a Super Bowl was a goal in his life, but that he lives for something deeper and something more profound. So here's how he explains this. He said, when achieving something, this is important, when achieving something is the purpose of your life, it will always let you down. When it is just a goal and not your purpose, then you can actually enjoy it. Athletics have always been a big part of my life. It's both fun and it's what I do for a living, but the purpose of my life for a long time now has been to glorify Jesus and to use the talents he's given me to do that. See, for him, it wasn't an emptiness because he understood who he was and the real purpose of his life. And it wasn't in winning a Super Bowl. That's just something cool that he got to experience and an amazing gift in his life. But he understood who he was. And then what's even more potent about his story is that he's not just talking about having this meaning and this sense of contentment at the top, that he also knew how to live it at the bottom. Because just 1 year prior to him winning the Super Bowl with the Colts, his 18-year-old son, James, committed suicide. He wrote this. He said, it was the worst experience I've ever been through. Like many parents, I did my very best and I still didn't see it coming. If I had not been a follower of Jesus, I would not have made it through. Tony Dungy is saying there's got to be a meaning to your life, a purpose for your life that is big enough, deep enough, strong enough to sustain you both at the bottom and at the top of your life. And what I love is the separation, the difference between goals and purpose. Have goals and chase big goals. God has given you time and talents. Be successful. Chase those goals in your life. Try to kill it in every way that you want to with your life, but just don't ever confuse that goal with the reason that you're on this earth. It is not the purpose that God created you, and it's not the greatest gift that you will have or get to experience. That is only found in one person, and the relationship of knowing God and being known by him. And so as we go back to Ecclesiastes, Solomon is saying that this insatiable craving for meaning in all of our lives, like it seems like, especially when you read the book of Ecclesiastes, like the whole thing's in a nosedive the whole time, and then the last second he pulls it out and it doesn't quite crash. And he points to this simple truth, and it sounds too simple to actually work, but he says, no, here's the summarization of life. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind. This is the very purpose of all mankind. This is your purpose, to know God and to follow his way for your life. That's it. And God has given you amazing gifts and times and talents and great goals to chase with your life. Just don't confuse the gift with the giver. In fact, at Christmas time, like we love to give gifts, but it's not really about the gifts, is it? It's about the relationship behind the gift. It's what the gift signifies from the person that gave it to you. And let's be honest, selfishly, but when we give a gift to someone we love, our hope is that they'll set the gift aside and run and give us a hug, because the relationship is what matters, not the gift. How much more? With your life, with your existence. That's what Solomon is pointing us to. He's saying that there is one purpose in your life, and it's found in one person in your life. And it's the only thing that you can find real meaning. That's what Tony Dungy was saying. At the top of life, at the bottom of life, anything that you desire, it can't become the reason for your living. There's only one reason for the meaning of your life, and it's Christ. Now, this is the claim of Christianity. Jesus says, hey, I'm not just some nice teacher. I'm not just some cool dude. I claim to be the truth. That truth is not some intellectual thing we have to study or try to grasp or go away to meet some guru to figure out. Jesus says, it's me, it's a person. Know me and you know everything you need to know. In me, you have everything that you need in this life. Now, Jesus would teach us in a lot of ways, and then his disciples, like his first followers, would teach this. John is a guy who became a historian because he first is following Jesus, and he saw Jesus as like a rabbi, which is cool. Then he saw Jesus do really cool stuff like raise people from dead. It blew his mind. But then Jesus died, and he thought he joined the wrong team. But then Jesus didn't stay dead, and he left a tomb empty. And then John was like, you've got to know this. This person, Jesus, was so much more than we thought. He is the Messiah and the resurrected Lord. And through him, you can be reconciled to your Creator. And he became a historian and wrote down the biography of Jesus' life so that people someday like us could look back and learn from an actual eyewitness to the life of Jesus. And speaking of this reality, this truth, he penned one of the most famous verses in all of the Bible. And he said it this way in John chapter 3, verse 16, for God so loved the world that he gave his one and only son. Like the gift giver became the gift. That whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. He's saying, look, the reality of who Jesus is he went from the very top to the very bottom for the love of you. And there is no love you will ever experience in this life. There is no accomplishment or success or promotion or experience that you will ever have that can compete with who Jesus is and what he did. And it's found in him alone, the very purpose and the meaning of your life. It's quite a claim. It's a relationship that is the only one that's guaranteed not to fail you. And it's something that you can't lose. It can't be taken from you for any reason outside of your control. Your purpose is not found in the pursuit of power or prestige or pleasure or possessions. Your purpose is found in the pursuit of the one whose name is Jesus. In fact, if you were here the first week, we gave you guys these cards that look like this. And on these cards, each week we said, hey, like keep this, put it in your wallet, your Bible. If you didn't get one, you can grab one on the way out today. And on the top of the guest list last week, we talked about people who aren't on the guest list to God and be praying for them. And today on the wish list, I want you to write down the word power or possession or prestige or pleasure, the one that trips you up the most. The one that when you're honest, really gets in the way of your pursuit of God because you keep looking at this thing to be something for you that it can't. What is that for you? What does it look like to realign that? Because see, the whole claim of the Christmas story wrapped up in this nice, beautiful little story is that born that night was everything you and I need to find the meaning and the very thing that we're searching for in this life. So the first thing you and I need to work on is purpose. But then if we're gonna avoid the mistakes of Solomon in our life, if we're gonna reach the end of our life and not look back full of a bunch of regrets, a bunch of excess, a bunch of emptiness, that you and I someday wouldn't lay on our deathbed and just feel like it was all meaningless, Understanding our purpose is first, and the second is clinging to the promise of what this is all about. The promise of the hope that we have, the promise of all that Jesus fulfilled, and the promise that he is with us. See, Christmas boils down to this one word, Emmanuel, God with us. That he was with us, he came into history, and he's with us now. And it's that promise that is to guide us through the storms at the bottom of our life and the success and the victories at the top of our lives. Jesus is the fulfillment of all the promises that have been made to God's people. Joel said this last week, when you turn to the book of Matthew at the beginning of the New Testament, you don't realize 400 years of silence have passed. For hundreds of years, the people of God yearned for the Messiah to come. And there had been many prophets who prophesied of like where he would come from and what the whole thing would look like. In fact, in Micah, a prophet named Micah, hundreds of years before Jesus' birth, he promised this, he said this, "But you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, though you are small among the clans of Judah, out of you will come for me one who will be ruler over Israel, whose origins are from of old, from ancient times." That born that night in the Christmas story of Bethlehem was the one that had been promised, and that today is still our promise, God with us. A couple years ago, I ran across this writing by a pastor and an author named Max Lucado, you probably know him, and he wrote this thing just trying to picture what it was like to be the mother of Jesus. Like just to be the mother of a baby, but let alone a baby that's not just a baby, like there's so much more to him. What kind of prayers do you pray as a mom of a baby like that? And so he wrote this simple story trying to picture that. I want to read it to you as we talk about the promise of Christmas, and the promise of what Jesus is in our life. I'm going to invite you just to close your eyes and picture this story. Picture how you would pray as the parent of baby Jesus. And here's how the prayer goes. God, O infant God, heaven's fairest child, conceived by the union of divine grace with our disgrace, sleep well, sleep well. Bask in the coolness of this night bright with diamonds. Sleep well, for the heat of anger simmers nearby. Enjoy the silence of the crib, for the noise of confusion rumbles in your future. Savor the sweet safety of my arms, for a day is soon coming when I cannot protect you. Rest well, tiny hands. For though you belong to a king, you will touch no satin, own no gold. You will grasp no pen, guide no brush. No, your tiny hands are reserved for works more precious. To touch a leper's open wound, to wipe a widow's weary tear, to claw the ground of Gethsemane. Your hands so tiny, clutched tonight in an infant's fist. They aren't destined to hold a scepter, nor wave from a palace balcony. They are reserved instead for a Roman spike that will staple them to a Roman cross. Sleep deeply, tiny eyes. Sleep while you can, for soon the blurriness will clear, and you will see the mess we have made of your world. You will see our nakedness, for we cannot hide. You will see our selfishness, for we cannot give. You will see our pain, for we cannot heal. Oh, eyes that will see hell's darkest pit and witness her ugly prince. Sleep, please sleep. Sleep while you can. Lie still, tiny mouth. Lie still, mouth from which eternity speaks. Tiny tongue that will soon summon the dead, that will define grace, that will silence our foolishness. Rosebud lips, upon which ride a star-born kiss of forgiveness for those who believe in you. And tiny feet cupped in the palm of my hand. Rest, for many difficult steps lie ahead of you. Do you taste the dust of the trails that you will travel? Do you feel the cold seawater upon which you will walk? Do you wrench at the invasion of the nail that you will bear? Do you fear the steep descent down the spiral staircase into Satan's domain? Rest, tiny feet. Rest today so that tomorrow you might walk in power. Rest, for millions will follow in your steps. And little heart, holy heart, pumping the blood of life through the universe, how many times will we break you? You'll be torn by the thorns of our accusations. You'll be ravaged by the cancer of our sins. You'll be crushed under the weight of our own sorrow. And you'll be pierced by the spears of our rejection. See, you guys, this is so important. Christmas is only the beginning of a story that points to the cross. And Christmas without the cross is just a nice story. Nice thing that God did, cool, he came down here to hang out with us, look us eye to eye, give us a name to call him. Like, that's nice, but it's not a nice story. And it's not why he came. Christmas all points to the cross, where God would demonstrate his love for you and forever state your worth and your value upon a cross and remove the burden for you and I to try to be good enough or earn it or deserve it or be perfect, because we're not good at it. and instead invite us through the person of Jesus to follow the one who is and who accomplished it all. Christmas points us to the cross and points us to the very purpose of our own lives and the promise that he's with us through all his ups and downs. And this Christmas season, I hope you get great gifts, and I hope you have great time with your family. But do not be confused. Whose you are and the greatest gift you've been given is access to your Heavenly Father.